What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, NVIDIA, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's happening with the economic calendar thus far, what's going on with the option chain for SPY, some very important levels to be watching for, and what my price prediction is for tomorrow, looking at the charts so far. Before I give you all this information, before I get into any more details about Tesla, SPY, NVIDIA, the QQQ, and all these different tickers, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, guys, we had some very interesting price action today for the markets, some very interesting developments on the options chain and the charts. So I want to talk about all of this. SPY was very tricky today. We saw a lot of traps by these market makers. What they did was, when SPY opened, it was just back and forth, sideways price action between 520 and 521 for almost the entire day. Almost the entire day. It was just back and forth price action. And then during the final 30 minutes, these guys decided to just tank the market super hard at the very end, bring SPY back down to the 518s and came back up again. It's actually trying to rebound a bit to the 519.14 area, but you could see there's a lot of manipulation. This was a big trap that was set for retail. They gave us this inverse head and shoulders like pattern. We had a left shoulder here, we had a head, and then we had this right shoulder forming. And instead of holding it, because we were trying to hold our 50 EMA, there was like potential for this to try to bounce, but instead they ended up dumping it the opposite direction. This was all part of their trap, and this was very tricky. This was a lot of manipulation that's really affecting this market. So I want to break down what could end up playing out for tomorrow and why we're at some very critical support. So I'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Excuse me. Let's first talk about some data and things like that. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Wednesday, March 27th. There's not really a whole lot coming up. We have some crude oil data coming out at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's an hour after the market opens. But then at 11:30 a.m., we have the 17-week bill auction coming out, the 2-year FRN auction coming out, and then at 1 p.m., we have the 7-year notes auction. So we'll be watching to see how this affects us moving forward. Looking at the fear and greed index, I just want to call this out as well. We were at extreme greed, now we're just barely at greed, and this is slowly shifting this way as the market's declining. Market greed is slowing down just a little bit in terms of momentum, and other things are starting to show some weakness. The puts and call positioning has been on a bit of an uptrend. If this keeps going higher, that would be a bearish signal. And then additionally, you want to remember that market volatility, the VIX is still neutral. We're not officially in a big downtrend, but the market is starting to show some weakness. So we're going to be watching to see how we react to the 50 daily moving average. Now, for SPY, we have some interesting developments on the options chain. What happened today was max pain happened to be at 519, and they happened to bring us very close to that. So there's a chance that SPY could be trying to follow max pain very closely. Doesn't have to be exact, but it could just kind of like trade sideways from where we are right now just to see this for tomorrow. But what I found interesting is the fact that for Thursday is going to be the last trading day of the week. The market's going to be closed on Good Friday. Okay. For Thursday, we have a 515 max pain. We have over 2 million puts expiring, and we have just under 500,000 of these calls expiring. So as what I noticed is that the put positioning has not really changed much, but the call positioning is going up. We're starting to see a lot of people buying calls, and the put to call ratio has been dropping, which makes me start to suspect, will the market makers try to hurt more calls as well and bring us closer to max pain? That's a real possibility, but in order for this to play out, we have to be watching to see what SPY does. Here's what I'm basically seeing on the charts. So for SPY, the way we were looking was we had this very interesting development. SPY was basically forming this bull flag right over here. Nice bull flag. It came up here, it started to consolidate a bit, then came back down. It was trying to break out. This was a false breakout today. Sometimes this happens. This is a lot of trickery that happened. They wanted us to suspect that this was going to break out. I told everyone to watch and see if this inverse head and shoulders plays out or not. I didn't say it will play out. I said to watch the levels just to be safe. I talked about how I wanted to see this thing close at 521 for this to really play out. Instead, it ended up getting a last-minute sell-off. This was all part of their plan to trick people. They wanted everyone to think it was going to bounce. Instead, they did the opposite. And that ended up giving them a big advantage as max pain was close to where we ended up closing at. So what do I see on the chart now? I want to break down a couple of things. The first thing you have to remember is that when you look at the daily time frame, the daily is showing a little bit of weakness on SPY. We've actually been declining just a little bit. We had a very indecision candlestick looking yesterday. Now today we're looking a little bit more bearish. have an imbalance down here at 515, which makes a possible target. And then additionally, when you look at the chart right here, you'll see that the 4-hour time frame is actually showing some weakness. We're showing some signs of weakness right now on the 4-hour. It does suggest that there will likely be more downside, but that makes me think that a very big test is coming on SPY for tomorrow. So what this means is, hold on, looking right here, I think that SPY is going to be testing some critical supports tomorrow. Remember in my previous videos, guys, how I was talking about how we had this support, right? We touched this white line, bounced off of it, touched it again, we bounced off of it. And now going into right now, SPY is going to likely test it with the white line down here, this white line, our support. And if we lose this, a bigger drop could come. If we hold this, we could try to bounce. That's the big test I'm going to be looking for tomorrow. So watch resistance at this white trend line. This is going to be our first resistance. We also have 520 as resistance, followed by 520.5 at our 50 EMA. For support, watch 519. If we lose this, we have this next trend line of support in the 518s. If we lose that, a bigger drop is going to be coming all the way down to about 516.5. And if we lose that, 515 is going to be our next target for a big drop down here to lower levels. That opens the doors for the lower levels for SPY. This chart was trying to bounce. As of right now, this is starting to look a bit more bearish because we had this top right here at 524. We came down. We established a lower high at 522 today, and now we're coming down again. So it's looking kind of weak. SPY's been trying and trying, but now it kind of failed. So for tomorrow, I'm going to be looking for a test of this trend. I think it might be testing the 518s. Watch to see if we get a bounce or do we end up losing this support. If we lose this, a big drop is going to be coming, so be prepared. I do want to note that the trend on SPY is kind of bearish, so there is a risk of this coming down. What else is contributing to this dropping would be two other factors. Another factor is Aapl. Apple's been downtrending a bit as well. It was just trading sideways, but now it's starting to show some signs of weakness. We have 170 is resistance, 169 is support. If you lose that, a bigger drop is coming to 168. I just want to note that this thing is downtrending, and there could be a risk of Aapl dropping a bit more from here. For Nvidia, this is another big red flag. So if you look at Nvidia, okay, we have all these levels. Check this out. Look at this big white line I have drawn across here. NVIDIA was bouncing off this, bouncing off this, bouncing off this many, many times. So in order for this to remain bullish, we have to try to get back above that line. We were holding above it so well. I called it the test of this line. We actually were trying to bounce off of it. And then what happened at the very last hour? Bam, they smacked it right back down to 925. So this is looking a little bit more bearish now. It looks like a distributive pattern that's developing here. And if NVIDIA loses 925 to 920, this support right here, this is where this previous gap happened to be. I think that there's going to be a big drop coming to 908, if not 900, if we lose 920. If we break past 930, we could try to rebound and retest 938. But I just want to say the chart is showing some weakness when you look at these different time frames. If you look at the 4-hour time frame, NVIDIA is starting to turn a little bit. And then if I pull it up like this, you will see that there's a little bit of weakness developing on this chart. We need a follow through move to turn a lot more bearish, but the 4-hour is showing contraction. I'm seeing the same thing on other technical indicators. So to me, this chart is showing weakness. NVIDIA could pop again, and it may actually eventually retest 920. If we lose this, a big drop will be coming to at least 908, and I see a risk of that in my personal opinion. Why is this significant? Because this could be a little bit negative for the QQQ. Now, I said in my previous video, there is a risk of the QQQ dropping. I was seeing that on the charts. I called that out in my previous video that did end up playing out. But I was saying that it could actually try to bounce off this trend line if we did see some buyers stepping in. But now things are becoming more complicated because NVIDIA is showing some weakness and so is Aapl. So from what I'm seeing, this is a high right here. We established kind of like a double top, and now we made a lower high at the 447 area. Watch resistance right here at this yellow trend line. So this is just at about the 440, 444 area. And then if we do break past that resistance, we'll be watching for the next level at 445. Past that, we have 446.8 and then 448. For support, if we end up getting a big rejection, we'll be looking for basically 442. If we lose this, there's going to be 440, followed by 438. In my opinion, this chart is looking a little bit weaker. We have this big bar right over here. I do see a risk of this coming all the way down to about 442. So QQQ is looking a bit more weak because of NVIDIA and Aapl, and also because of this trend. So please be a little bit more careful going into tomorrow. It may pop and then drop back down right here towards our 200 EMA. So I'm seeing some risks on the QQQ and also for SPY. Looking at Tesla now, because here's the reason why. Let me just show you the daily. The daily is really important on Tesla. Check this out, guys. Look at the daily candlestick on Tesla. This looks absolutely incredible. So we popped all the way up to about 184. We opened right here. We popped up, then we came all the way down. We closed at about 177, 178 around there. So the point is, look at this candlestick. It looks very bearish. Big rejection, liquidity sweep up here. They're getting ready to short Tesla, and we might see a move down. I also want to note that deliveries are coming out soon. We only have a couple of days left, and they might be getting ready to fill this gap down here very soon before deliveries. So I think Tesla looks like it's going to come down to fill 172, the gap down there. The chart is showing some weakness. I wouldn't be surprised if some bad news suddenly came out for Tesla. I also want to note that we have this trend line right here. This white trend line is our support. If we lose support at 177.5, there's going to be a bigger drop coming to the 173 area. If we lose this, a bigger drop is going to be coming all the way down to 170, 160 in these lower levels. I think that there's a risk that this is going to pop a bit and start coming back down towards the 172 area to fill that gap. There's a gap all the way down here at 172.8. That's like the pre-market gap. And then the gap for the daily is all the way down to 172. So I see a test of those lower levels. I think there's a risk of Tesla dropping. Could pop again in the morning, then start coming back down. But just be careful. Technicals are starting to show some weakness. Now, guys, I'm going to transition to the other tickers I typically go over. Unfortunately, the market is starting to turn a bit. SPY has a big test coming, so SPY is not officially super bearish. It still needs some time. The QQQ is looking a little bit weaker than SPY to me. Tesla has a risk of downside. NVIDIA has a risk of downside as it's broken some critical support, but we have to watch 920 as well. And Apple's also looking a little bit weaker, slowly kind of slowing down. So the market is starting to shift a bit, so you want to be very careful. Anyways, now let's talk about some other tickers. Let's talk about Palantir and the others out there. Right now, looking at Palantir, I would say that this chart is showing lots of sideways price action. We have resistance right over here at, I'm going to double check this area right here around 25.5. We did actually push as we predicted. A little rejection. Our support is going to be at 24.5. I think that there's a very good chance that this is forming kind of like a double top, and it's going to come back down towards the support at 24.5. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. If we lose that, a bigger drop is coming to about the 24 area. So I do see a risk of kind of like a pop and drop and a move back down to lower levels. On to Supermicro. Supermicro to me is looking a little bit weaker because although this is actually on a bit of an uptrend, I want to call out the possibility of us getting this liquidity grab here. They're trying to sweep it right here, and then we're going to be looking for a break of structure. So I'm going to be looking for a test of 1012. 1012 is going to be tested. If we bounce off this, it could actually hold up for a bit. If we lose this, this is going to turn, our overall PPO is going to turn, and this is going to start turning back down to about the 950, 975 area again. If we lose 1012, that's going to be our key support on Supermicro. There is a risk of that coming down, in my opinion, looking at the current pattern. For Rivian, excuse me, guys, Rivian is looking bearish to me because we have a left shoulder here, a head, and a right shoulder. And overall, it's not doing a good job at getting back above our 20 EMA. It's not doing a good job at getting back above 1088. This suggests that because it's kind of like struggling, and let me show you why I'm saying that. Look at what happened today, right? Look at what happened today. This thing touched this green line. See this green line, the 20 EMA? We touched it, rejected. We touched it again, rejected. So it's struggling to get that break of the critical resistance we have to break to turn bullish. This means that the chart is still on a downtrend. It's still showing some weakness. I see a risk of it coming all the way down to like the lower 10s. So it might actually kind of pop again. Could get a retest of like 10.8 or so and eventually come back down towards like 10.4 and then 10 flat. So I see some risks of downside. For SOFI, we're looking bearish because we have a... So even though we had like an inverse head and shoulders like structure, we need to see a big bounce and we have to try to break above resistance around 7.5 to turn bullish. But the problem is our technicals are showing some weakness right now, especially thanks to the markets. And this also could be interpreted as like a double top if the inverse head and shoulders fails. So if we continue to sink, we end up losing 7.18. There could be a risk of an imbalance fill towards $7 flat. And for bullish, you need to see it bounce and try to get back above 7.5. If we break 7.5, we turn bullish. So there's technically a bullish and a bearish case, but I do want to warn you of the risk of the double top here and this imbalance. So it could actually kind of like pop and drop. So just be able to be careful. Moving forward, we also have AMD. AMD is in a very, very interesting place. It's just trading sideways. We have key support at 177. We have resistance at 180 and 185. So I would say that right now, with us kind of trading sideways to the 200 EMA trying to contract right here, If we bounce off this, we could try to push back up to 185 plus. If we lose this, we're going to be sinking down to 177. As of right now, we're stuck. We're going back and forth and back and forth. I would rather just watch it and see. The market could slow it down since we have a big bar to the red that just came today. So there's a risk of this dropping back down towards 172. But watch and see for confirmation. Do we lose our 200 EMA or not? Looking at ARM, was trying to push, got a big rejection, a huge rejection today. So I just want to note that this is looking kind of bearish. Could pop retest 130 and start sinking all the way down towards the 124 area, if not below that. For Coinbase, Coinbase is showing a little bit of weakness. We're going to be looking at our critical support at 264. If we lose 264, we could be coming down to 250. To turn bullish, you want to see this actually bounce off this area and try to get back to about it has to try to break above 278. If we break that, I'm going to be looking for a move back up to the high at 290. But like I said before, there's a gap to fill down here. We're starting to contract a little bit. So I see a risk of this coming down to at least 255. I do favor that a little bit more. So just be a little bit more careful on this. We were trying to hold up nicely, but now we're starting to turn, and we're barely holding our 20 EMA. So we'll see if it comes down a bit towards 255 and then bounces. I see a little bit more downside. Amazon, I was talking about how we had critical resistance at 180. It was trying to hold up, now it's trying to turn a bit, but it hasn't officially broken it too badly. We're still above 178.6. If we hold above 178.6, we could see a move back up towards this imbalance. We could get back up to about 180, then reject and come back down towards 177. And if we end up losing 178, we're going to be looking for another move back down. But if anything, I just want to say that Amazon's looking a little bit more bearish. So we have like this bearish PPO crossover. And if we start sinking lower, we're going to be looking for 177. I want to say that there is a risk of Amazon sinking a bit more. The chart is not looking as strong as before, but we need to watch for confirmation. We have to see it lose 178.6 and then test 177. If we lose that, bigger drop is going to be coming all the way down to these lower levels. So those are like two supports to watch for on Amazon. We've been shuffling a lot around 180, but we'll see if this thing actually turns or not this time. There is a risk of that. But watch support just to be safe. Like I said in my video, I said Nvda was showing some weakness and there's a risk of it coming down. So I did call some of these stocks to drop, but not everything. In this case, we lost 499, which is like a really bad sign. We're barely at 496. So look for a rebound. We could actually grab liquidity at 499, then reject off that. And I'm going to be looking for a test of 494. That's where we have critical support. If we lose that, there's going to be 490 flats coming. And if that fails us, we'll see an even bigger drop coming all the way back down to about 485. But I do see a risk of some downside. The chart's looking kind of weak, so look for a little pop and drop or a drop from here. I'm looking for more potential over there. And last but not least, we have Microsoft, which is looking a little bit of weaker, in my honest opinion. Watch 420. Very funny level. 420 is going to be our key support. I think that Microsoft is starting to contract because when we hit 430, that was a very, very tight resistance. I made a bearish divergence, which is starting to play out. So I think it might open a little bit higher, gap up, and then start sinking. And we're going to be looking for a test of 420.5, so the 420 area. If we lose that, a bigger drop is going to be coming all the way down to these previous levels, such as 415.6. So look for 420, guys. I think the test is coming. We'll see if it bounces off there or not. I believe that it might actually lose that, and there's going to be a risk of more downside, so just be very careful. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning during the pre-market. Thank you again, guys. Markets at the moon. The long term is still very bright despite this contraction that's coming. Do not forget that not every single stock has to drop. We have to wait for confirmation for some things like SPY, some things like NVIDIA, and also for others out there. But other stocks are showing some weakness, such as Microsoft, such as like Tesla, and the list goes on. All right, so watch your levels, do what you have to do, guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next one. Thank you, and peace out.